Viral sensation and internet genius Mark Rober made one of the greatest mistakes of his career when he opened Twitter. Not to be deterred by that oopsie, he then made the second greatest mistake of his entire career, tweeting. Once again, laying aside the inevitability of swift backlash from the universe for committing such an atrocity, he proceeded to tweet about Demi Lovato, and he said this: "Demi is such a lovely human being. What you don't see here is the train derailing twice, and after the second time, she could see that I was kind of nervous. So she rallied the crowd, talking about how it takes guts to put yourself out there, and then she hyped me up a bit, and we pulled it off." Smiley face. And under this was a video of a train that he had built that played the tune of a song that Demi then sang along to. Now you'll note that in the tweet, Mark called Demi a she, and there were a lot of people in the comments that were very quick to jump on him for misgendering her. Hey Mark, Demi uses they them pronouns. In before you're canceled for not saying they or them. Hey Mark, just a heads up for the future, Demi uses they them pronouns. There were also several others that have since been deleted, so I made sure to screenshot several as they popped up just in case people tried to take backsies what they had said after they realized that Demi, according to her Instagram, goes by they, them, she, or her. Literally, it is right there on her Instagram. But everyone had such a huge justice boner that I guess covered up the she, her, and they jumped on the opportunity to smack down that disgusting human Mark Rober for his obviously transphobic comments. Now, obviously that's not exactly what happened, and by and large the comments were a lot nicer than that. But it's so interesting that everyone was gunning so hard to try and correct someone that has no idea that they exist in order to defend someone that also has no idea that they exist. And while the motivations of these tweeting corrections officers is unclear, really all that's been accomplished is them feeling better about themselves. Now, of this Twitter thread and the replies bravely saving the trans community one 280 character message at a time, there was one that stuck out the most to me. And don't harass these people, I'm just using their names because they left their tweets up on a public platform where anyone can access it and see them. So in this thread, Sean corrected Mark Rober's use of she, and then Joe replied with a picture of Demi's Instagram showing that she goes by she or they. Sean replies with, "Oh, interesting. Thank you for the information. When Demi originally came out, they only used they, them. I didn't get the memo." Which, like, do trans people send out memos when they transition? Is that something they're supposed to do? Because that seems like a lot of effort. Then a third party named Fallen Nomad crops up and says, "Then perhaps scolding a stranger on the internet for something that has no bearing on you without the full facts isn't the best first response. Let's say he did mess up. Okay, that is between them. I'm sure she can clear it up without random strangers scolding her new friend." And this statement I only partially agree with. I do think that there are times we need to come together and say that we are collectively not okay with something. But this is absolutely not one of those times because, and I cannot emphasize this enough, no one was misrepresented. You're fighting battles that don't exist. If you want to make a change, that's great. Donate to a charity, or maybe volunteer at a shelter, or vote to elect legislators that'll pass laws that help people. Anything except this social justice tweeting that accomplishes literally nothing except to make you look like an idiot. Now Sean, who is the person who originally called out Mark Rober for misgendering Demi Lovato, comes back with a very interesting response that I think highlights the crux of the issue here. "I was correcting what I thought was the misgendering of a person. I wasn't being aggressive or condescending. I like Mark Rober. I'm excited he met Demi. I thought he made a mistake and corrected it early. I didn't scold, and when proven wrong, I corrected my previous info." This response is very telling because Sean doesn't apologize for his mistake. Rather, he explains it away so as to defend himself and rescue his reputation. However, this argument that he just gave against being flamed for attacking Mark Rober is an argument that Mark Rober could have used if he actually had misgendered Demi Lovato. See, Sean was expecting an apology from Mark because Mark was wrong. But when it turned out Mark wasn't wrong and actually Sean was the one that was wrong, suddenly an apology wasn't warranted anymore because it was just an honest mistake. So why is Mark being held to the standard of apologizing for his mistakes when Sean is clearly allowed to say he just didn't know and then not take any accountability? The double standard is very telling here. Now I'm going to go ahead and make an insane extrapolation and point out the phrasing from his earlier tweet when he says, "I didn't get the memo." Not only is he saying he shouldn't have to apologize because it was a mistake and he didn't know, but he's also passing off blame of not knowing onto the rest of the internet, saying, "Oh, well, no one told me, so it's not my fault." Of course they didn't. You never asked. You never looked. You just saw a chance to be a good person and check that little checkbox on your little morals checklist, and you jumped at the opportunity. You are absolutely in the wrong here, Sean. Now, originally, that was going to be the end of the video, but please stick around because I do have a bigger point that I want to make about this entire situation, and I promise it is not the Twitter bad, cancellation bad that everyone seems to be talking about. Everything becomes equal when you tweet. And let me qualify that statement. With Twitter, everyone has a voice. And whether you tweet about your waiter being rude, or the January 6th insurrection, or the violation of human rights in China, all these tweets, they all carry the same weight, and they're pushed out to the same people that follow you. And they're in the same kind of box, and they all have the same character count limit. Tweets are the great equalizer, because everyone has an almost identical voice, and the only thing that separates one tweet from another is just the number of followers that the person has, and a little bit the algorithm if it decides to push it out to people outside their usual circle. So with everyone having a voice, and those voices often appearing equal, everyone has the ability to call someone out online. And recently, this has kind of become the thing to do. It's a three-step process where you see someone doing something wrong, you call them out on Twitter, and then you try and get them canceled. And now for the big reveal that I promised earlier. With cancel culture, everyone wins. Yeah, you probably expected me to say everyone loses, but actually everyone wins. And since that's a confusing, possibly controversial statement, let me take an entire section and explain myself. Okay, so when someone is canceled, most of the time, everyone involved wins. Now, the people who do the canceling win because they feel like they achieved something. They were part of a big movement to rid the world of that horrible person, and now they get to feel good about themselves. And after canceling someone, you can point at them and say, well, at least I'm not as horrible as that guy. So really, I feel pretty good about myself. And I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing either. I am merely saying that it is a thing that happens. When we stand up for something we believe in, we feel good about ourselves because we were part of the movement that reached out and tried to solicit a change. Now, the person who got canceled wins because they got canceled. And probably that's the most free media attention they've ever gotten in their entire lives. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of advertising and promotion, and really all they had to do was tweet that one racial slur 10 years ago. And to illustrate my point, let's look at some examples. Andrew Tate. Horribly misogynistic person who preys on insecure teenagers and professionally believes that women serve no other purpose other than to be a sex object for his using whenever he feels like it. I hope all of us can agree that that is absolutely disgusting. And yet, after everyone started making fun of him, including huge names like Ludwig, Danny Gonzalez, he's been blowing up. And according to YouTuber Bahiza, look how much money he makes.
So with this two-step master blueprint, he was able to amass over 86,000 students in his Hustlers University program, which comes out to over $4 million per month in recurring revenue for him.
This level of fortune and fame wouldn't have been possible if everyone hadn't talked about how horrible he was and canceled him. Next example is Dave Chappelle. It's a name that almost everyone has heard, but not everyone knows who he is. That is, until his Netflix special came out and he was canceled for some transphobic jokes that he made during the set. And now, he has never been more in the spotlight in his entire life than he is right now. People who weren't gonna watch him continued to not watch him. People who hate cancel culture probably looked him up, and then a few of them probably became fans. And people who knew who he was but had maybe forgotten about him or hadn't watched him in a while were suddenly reminded, and probably a few of them started watching his stuff again. The point is, he did not lose. He's now selling out shows and making millions. Morgan Wallen is another great example. He's a country singer who went viral after screaming a racial slur while drunk. The video made its rounds, everybody condemned him, he was canceled on Twitter, and then his sales rose by 1,220%. And specifically his music sales spiked by 327%. This man made 12 times more money than he normally would have just by going viral and getting canceled. Strictly from a business standpoint, that is probably the best decision he ever made, even if it was an absolutely vile thing to do and say. Now, let's take a second to look at some other people that might come to your mind as people who didn't make it safely through cancellation. James Charles, I mean, his YouTube channel is dying, sure, but his TikTok is gaining tens of millions of followers, and his makeup brands are killing it, and his YouTube is still bringing in hundreds of millions of views a year. So no, not him. Maybe David Dobrik. Sure, all he got was a Discovery Plus exclusive show that paid him millions and allowed him to travel the world living the dream. Also, he still uploads and gets millions of views per video. So no, not him either. Minilad? Sure. All he did was take a vacation, travel the world, get into shape, and then put out a video saying that he's happier than ever because getting canceled allowed him to get therapy and find himself again. So no, not him either. I think you get the idea, so let's move on. It's a great question. Like, where does this all leave us? And the answer is, I don't really know. If I have low self-esteem and tweeting angrily at a celebrity who doesn't know who I am and probably will never see the tweet makes me feel better about myself, then that's good, right? And we should be encouraging that. If cancel culture helps both sides because the celebrity gets free publicity and tends to make bank, and then I get to feel good about myself because I'm a great person that helped rid the world of said celebrity, then cancel culture is a good thing, right? It's a win-win, so we should endorse it, yeah? Well, no. And not because it doesn't do enough, but because I actually think it does too much. The people who do the canceling get all the benefits and rewards and good feelings of having actually done something good, while the people who are canceled get all the benefits and rewards and good feelings of having actually created something worthwhile. And in both instances, each party is getting too much for no effort, and it's replacing the need to get those feelings from real sources. For cancelers, they actually now don't need to help with anything like protesting police brutality against black people or electing officials that will hold authorities who abuse powers accountable. They get those good social justice highs from tweeting, and now they don't need it from anywhere else. For the cancelees, they now don't need to work nearly as hard as they would have to achieve the same result. They're relevant, and often they didn't even have to try. So they get all the benefits as if they had done something really cool or new, so they don't actually have to work towards creating something big or exciting anymore. That level of fame was just kind of handed to them. So if someone does something bad, talk about it and point out to those around you why it's harmful. But taking to Twitter in droves is often the best thing that can happen to them. So don't do that. The best thing you can do is educate the people close to you as to why it's a problem, and then don't give the celebrity what they want, whatever that may be. It might be not listening to their music anymore. It might be not going to their shows anymore. And most definitely, don't jump online and try and create a cancel campaign against them, because you will absolutely, positively help them. And that just defeats the purpose of everything. With all of that said, don't forget to love yourselves and all of those people around you, and I will catch you all next video.